There is a list circulating right now that has set the entire sports world on fire. ESPN, one of the most powerful media organizations on the planet, just dropped their official top 10 WNBA players entering the 2026 season. And the moment fans saw it, the reaction was immediate, visceral, and completely justified. Because sitting at the very bottom of that list, ranked 10th out of 10, is the player who led the entire league in assists, the player who made the All-WNBA first team, the player who is currently the betting favorite to win MVP this season, and the player personally responsible for driving more than half of the most watched games in WNBA history. 10. Dead last. Not 5th, not 3rd, not 2nd. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. And what makes this so much bigger than just a rankings disagreement is that this is not the first time. This is a pattern. And today, we are exposing every single piece of it.
Why is injuries pushing Caitlin Clark down to number 10? Yo, this got me hot. This got me hot. It's no way Caitlin Clark is the 10th best player in this league. You crazy? Caitlin Clark might be the 10th best player in the NBA. What are we talking about here? She might be top 10 over there. What are you talking about? This is wild work, bro. I cannot believe Copeland, you got Caitlin Clark down at number 10. This is insanity. Kelsey Mitchell at number 11. Stephanie White probably mad about that.
Let's start with what ESPN actually published, because the full picture is somehow worse than the headline suggests. A'ja Wilson sits at number 1. Absolutely no argument there. 3-time MVP, the best player in the league, a generational talent who has earned every bit of that top spot. That part of the list is fine. Napheesa Collier at 3 is defensible. She finished 2nd in MVP voting and led Minnesota to the best record in the entire league last season. Breanna Stewart at 4, also completely reasonable. 2-time MVP, a champion, one of the most decorated players in league history. Zero complaints about Stewart in that position. But then something happens between number 2 and the rest of the list that completely abandons statistical reality. Alyssa Thomas is ranked 2nd. Let that sit for a moment. Alyssa Thomas, who is 32 years old, who plays for the Phoenix Mercury, a team that completely missed the playoffs last season, a player who has never won an MVP award, a player who has never won a championship, a player who has never led the league in a single major statistical category. ESPN looked at the entire WNBA roster and decided that Alyssa Thomas on a non-playoff team is the 2nd best player in the league. That decision alone should raise every eyebrow in the building. Then comes Jackie Young at 5. The Las Vegas Aces guard averaged 17.5 points per game last season, which is a solid number. But Jackie Young has never made an All-WNBA first team. She has never led the league in any major statistical category. She has never been a serious MVP candidate. And she is ranked 5 full spots ahead of a player who has done all 3 of those things. Sabrina Ionescu lands at 6. The Liberty guard is talented, no question, but her team was eliminated in the first round of the playoffs last season. She has never won MVP. And while she is a capable distributor, she averaged 4.4 assists per game in a season where Caitlin Clark averaged 8.4 as a rookie and then 8.8 inches her sophomore year, 6 spots ahead of Clark. With half the assists production, Alyssa Gray at 7. The Atlanta Dream guard averaged 17.6 points per game, which is respectable production. But she has never made an All-WNBA first team. She has never been in the MVP conversation. She was not involved in a single game that drew over 1 million viewers on national television. She is ranked 3 spots above the player who was involved in 20 of the 23 most watched games in WNBA history. And then there is Paige Bueckers at 8. Bueckers is exciting, she is young, and she showed real promise in her debut season. But she has played exactly 1 professional season. 1. And she is ranked above Caitlin Clark. That is the list. That is what ESPN published. And when you lay it out name by name, the conclusion becomes unavoidable. This is not a ranking built on statistics. It is not built on accolades. It is not built on impact or viewership or economic value. And that raises a very uncomfortable question about what exactly it was built on. But before we get into the why, we need to talk about the numbers. Because the numbers are where this whole thing completely falls apart.
It's low when you got Wheeler at 45. But again, we'll see how it goes. Dejanay Carrington, she's not going to play this season. She's still in a boot. Like, she might not play until what? Like, she might not play this season until August.
Numbers do not have agendas. They do not play favorites. They do not care about narratives or corporate politics or media relationships. They just exist, and they tell the truth. And right now, they are telling a truth that directly contradicts everything ESPN just published. Caitlin Clark was the unanimous Rookie of the Year in 2024. Not a close vote, not a controversial decision. Unanimous. Every single person who cast a ballot agreed that she was the best rookie in the league. That is not a minor achievement. In a league full of talented young players, unanimity is extraordinarily rare. She made the All-WNBA first team, not the second team, not an honorable mention, the first team. Won. That means the people who watch this league most closely, the people who study the film and analyze the matchups and understand the nuances of professional women's basketball, looked at every player in the league and put Caitlin Clark among the very best. Several of the players ranked above her on ESPN's list have never received that recognition. She led the entire league in assists. Not her team, the entire league. 8.4 per game as a rookie, then 8.8 in her second season. To put that in context, Sabrina Ionescu, ranked 6 spots ahead of her, averaged 4.4 assists. That is not a small gap. That is a canyon. Assists are not a soft stat. They require vision, decision-making, court awareness, and the ability to make every single player around you better. Clark does it better than anyone in the league. And ESPN ranked her behind players who are not even in the same conversation. She finished 4th in MVP voting last season, and she did that while playing through an injury that limited her availability and visibly affected her performance during stretches of the season. 4th, injured. On a team that was still finding its identity. Several of the players ranked above her on ESPN's list have never received a single MVP vote. She is the current betting favorite to win MVP in 2026. Not a co-favorite, not a dark horse. The favorite. The people putting real money on this outcome have looked at every player in the league and decided that Caitlin Clark is the most likely MVP this season. Sports betting markets are ruthlessly efficient. They do not move based on narratives. They move based on probability. And right now the probability market says Clark is the best player in the league entering this season. She was involved in 87% of the most watched games in WNBA history in 2024. That is not a slightly elevated number. That is a complete transformation of what a single player can do to a league's visibility. When she was injured in 2025, national television ratings dropped 55% within 2 weeks. 55% in 2 weeks. One player. That is an economic reality that no other athlete in women's sports history has ever produced. She just won tournament MVP at the FIBA qualifiers. She is entering the 2026 season completely healthy, and she is playing with the strongest supporting cast of her entire professional career. Put all of that together. Unanimous Rookie of the Year, All-WNBA first team, league leader in assists, 4th in MVP voting while injured, current MVP betting favorite, responsible for 87% of the most watched games in league history, tournament MVP at FIBA, fully healthy, entering 2026. ESPN ranked that player 10th. And somehow, this is not even the most disturbing part of the story, because this did not come out of nowhere, but there is a history here that goes back 3 full years. And when you see the complete timeline, the word coincidence stops being available as an explanation.
I'm okay with that, to be honest. But like we're gonna see 5 Chicago Sky players in the top 50 and no Fever players, or in 3 Fever players. Marina Mabrey, you know what? Marina Mabrey is going to get a lot of shots up for Toronto, so maybe predicting her at 31 makes sense. Bree Jones at 30, no one knows when she's back. No one has a clue when she.
1 bad ranking is an opinion. 2 bad rankings is a trend. 3 consecutive years of systematically placing Caitlin Clark below where every meaningful metric says she belongs is something else entirely. It is a pattern, and patterns tell you something real about the people creating them. Let's go through the full documented history, year by year, so there is absolutely no ambiguity about what has been happening. Early 2024, preseason. ESPN publishes their top 25 WNBA players list. Caitlin Clark, the #1 overall pick in the draft, the most hyped incoming player the league has ever seen, the player who shattered NCAA records and drew millions of new fans to women's basketball, does not crack the top 25. Not 26th, not 30th, she is simply not on the list. A player who had not yet played a single professional minute was deemed less relevant than at least 25 players already in the league. That was the opening statement. She then went out and unanimously won Rookie of the Year. Every voter, every ballot, unanimous. Mid-2024, during the season, ESPN revisits the rankings. After averaging 19 points and 8 assists per game and leading the entire league in assists, Clark is moved up to number 15. While she is statistically one of the most productive players in the league in real time, while she is actively leading the league in a major category, while she is driving viewership numbers that the league had never seen before, ESPN decided she was the 15th best player. The response from fans was immediate and loud. ESPN did not move. Early 2025, preseason. After everything Clark accomplished in her rookie season, ESPN finally places her in the top 5 for the first time. Number 4. Progress, in the most technical sense of the word, but still ranked behind 3 players, despite being the MVP betting favorite entering that season. Still, it felt like movement. Mid-2025. During the season, Clark is averaging 18.2 points and 8.9 assists before suffering an injury that limits her availability. ESPN's response is to drop her back down to number 9th. Despite the production, despite the impact, despite the fact that ratings collapsed the moment she left the court, back down to 9. Early 2026, preseason. After making the All-WNBA first team, after leading the league in assists, after finishing 4th in MVP voting, after driving the most significant economic transformation in the league's history, ESPN ranks her 10th, dead last on their top 10 list. 3 years, 5 ranking cycles, and the direction is almost always the same, down or flat, never accurately reflecting what the numbers actually say. There is a term in statistics called a non-random pattern. It describes a sequence of outcomes that cannot be reasonably explained by chance or random variation. 3 years of systematically underranking the same player against the same data is a non-random pattern. And non-random patterns have causes. They do not appear by accident. They are produced by something deliberate, whether that is editorial bias, internal politics, a conscious decision to resist the narrative around a specific player, or something else entirely. But they do not happen randomly. What is especially striking is the timing of the most recent drop. Clark went from number 4 in early 2025 to number 9 mid-2025, and then to number 10 entering 2026. That trajectory is moving in exactly the wrong direction relative to her actual performance and her actual impact on the league. And that gap between the trajectory of the rankings and the trajectory of her actual output is where the most uncomfortable questions live. The pattern is documented, the data is public, and what comes next is where it gets even more complicated, because ESPN is not just a media outlet covering the WNBA. They are a financial stakeholder in it, and that changes the conversation
Angel Reese,
completely.
22. All right. That is in and around. I think this might be a bit low for Angel, but like within a couple of spots. I think within a couple of spots, Angel Reese 22. I need to see who's higher than her. Angel Reese, again, I'm going to be real here. What Angel Reese has done to Dearica Hamby whenever they face off against each other.
This is the part that does not get discussed enough in mainstream sports media, and it should be discussed loudly, clearly, and repeatedly, because it reveals something about how these ranking decisions get made that goes well beyond simple editorial disagreement. ESPN recently signed a major media rights deal that includes substantial WNBA coverage. This is not a minor arrangement. This is a significant financial commitment that locks ESPN into broadcasting WNBA games, promoting WNBA content, and building an audience for WNBA programming over multiple years. The value of that deal, the actual dollar amount ESPN recovers from advertisers and viewers, is directly tied to one thing above everything else: viewership numbers. And the viewership numbers are directly tied to one player. In 2024, Caitlin Clark was involved in 87% of the most watched games in WNBA history. When she was injured in 2025, national television ratings dropped 55% within 2 weeks. Not 5%, not 15%, 55% in 14 days. That is not the kind of number that gets buried in a spreadsheet somewhere. That is the kind of number that gets presented in boardrooms and used to justify budget decisions and contract negotiations. ESPN's own network publishes Clark's MVP odds as the current favorite entering 2026. ESPN's own viewership data shows her as the single most important ratings driver the league has ever produced. ESPN's own financial interest in the WNBA is built on a foundation that Clark is largely responsible for constructing. And then, ESPN's editorial team ranked her 10th. That is not just a bad ranking. That is a direct contradiction between two departments of the same organization. The business side of ESPN understands exactly what Caitlin Clark means to their investment. The editorial side just published a list that actively undermines the value of that investment by signaling to casual fans that she is barely worth paying attention to. Think about what that signal does in practice. A casual sports fan, someone who does not follow the WNBA closely but occasionally watches games during the playoffs or catches highlights on social media, sees ESPN's promoted top 10 list. They see Clark at number 10. Their immediate takeaway is logical and completely understandable. If the biggest sports network in the country says she is the 10th best player in the league, she must be the 10th best player in the league. Maybe she is overrated. Maybe the hype around her is manufactured. Maybe there are 9 players more worth watching this season. And maybe that casual fan decides not to tune in for the Fever game on Friday night. Because why would you prioritize watching the 10th best player when you could watch the first or the second or the third? That is the real damage. Not the outrage on social media, not the Twitter likes, or the YouTube comments, or the sports talk radio segments. The real damage is the casual fan whose perception of Clark is quietly shaped by a ranking that has no statistical foundation. Those are the viewers ESPN needs to grow the league. Those are the people who will decide whether the WNBA becomes a mainstream sports property or stays a niche product. And ESPN just handed them a reason to be less interested. The contradiction between what ESPN's business operation knows about Clark and what ESPN's editorial team just published is striking. And it raises a question that nobody inside that building seems to want to answer publicly. How does a media company simultaneously recognize that a player is their most valuable asset and then rank her 10th on their own list? That question does not have a comfortable answer, but it has a very important implication. These rankings are not just wrong. They are actively harmful to the product ESPN is trying to sell. And the people making these editorial decisions either do not understand that, or they understand it perfectly and are making the choice anyway. Neither of those explanations reflects well on the organization. It is tempting to dismiss these lists as harmless content. Sports media rankings are a staple of the industry. Every outlet publishes them. They generate clicks, they spark debate, they fill airtime. And because they are inherently subjective, the argument goes, nobody should take them too seriously. Reasonable people can disagree about where a player ranks. That argument has a limit, and ESPN crossed it. When a ranking is built on genuine analytical disagreement, it creates productive conversation. When two thoughtful analysts look at the same data and come to different conclusions based on different values, that is legitimate sports discourse. Maybe one analyst weights defensive impact more heavily. Maybe another prioritizes efficiency over volume. Those disagreements are real, and they are interesting, and they make sports media worth engaging with. But when a ranking directly contradicts the objective data, when it places a player who led the league in assists behind multiple players who did not, when it places the MVP betting favorite behind players who have never received a single MVP vote, when it places the most watched player in league history below players who have never been involved in a game drawing significant national viewership, it stops being a difference of analytical opinion and becomes something else. It becomes misinformation with a sports branding, and misinformation shapes perception, especially among casual fans. The hardcore WNBA audience knows Clark's numbers. They have watched the games. They have seen the assists and the shooting and the leadership and the transformation of the Indiana Fever into a genuine contender. They are not fooled by a flawed ranking. But the hardcore audience is not the audience that needs to be converted. The audience that matters for the league's long-term growth is the casual fan, the person who watches a few games a year, the person who saw Clark's viral moments in college and became curious about the WNBA for the first time, the person who is still deciding whether women's basketball is worth adding to their regular viewing rotation. That person sees Clark at 10 and makes a calculation, and that calculation is reasonable given the information they have been presented. If the biggest sports network in the world says she is the 10th best player, the logical conclusion is that she is the 10th best player. Not a transcendent talent, not a generational force, not someone worth rearranging your Friday night to watch, just the 10th best player on a list of 10. These rankings also have a cumulative effect that compounds over time. This is not the first time ESPN has published a list placing Clark below where her numbers suggest she belongs. It is the latest entry in a 3-year documented pattern. And every time a new ranking comes out, it reinforces the impression in the casual fan's mind that Clark is good but not great, interesting but not essential, relevant but not dominant. That impression is built not by watching her play, but by absorbing the media narrative around her. And the media narrative is being shaped, deliberately or not, by a consistent pattern of undervaluation. The downstream consequences of that impression are real. Lower casual viewership, lower jersey sales, lower engagement from the audience segment the league needs most. All of it traceable, at least in part, to the signal being sent by a ranking that has no statistical justification. The people who will feel this most are not Caitlin Clark, who will go out and play at whatever level she plays at, regardless of what a rankings list says. The people who will feel this are the other players in the league, the coaches, the team staff, the front office executives, and the league itself, all of whom benefit when the casual audience grows and suffers when it stagnates. A wrong ranking is not just wrong, it has consequences. And in this case, the consequences run directly counter to the interests of everyone involved, including ESPN. Let's set aside the noise for a moment. Let's set aside the outrage and the social media reaction and the hot takes and the counter-arguments. Let's just look at the categories that WNBA analysts and voters and executives actually use to evaluate players, and let's apply them cleanly and honestly to figure out where Caitlin Clark actually belongs on this list. Assists. Clark led the entire league. Nobody on this top 10 list led the league in assists. Sabrina Ionescu averaged 4.4. Jackie Young is primarily a scorer. Alyssa Thomas operates as a playmaker in certain systems, but is not a lead distributor in the traditional sense. Clark averaged 8.4 as a rookie and 8.8 inches her second season. In the category of playmaking and distribution, she is not second on this list. She is not third. She is first by a significant margin. All-WNBA recognition. Clark made the first team. Several players ranked above her have never made the All-WNBA first team. The voters for that award watch more basketball than almost anyone outside of coaching staffs. Their collective judgment placed Clark among the very best players in the league. ESPN's list contradicts that collective judgment without offering a compelling data-based reason for doing so. MVP voting. Clark finished fourth in her second season while playing through injury. A'ja Wilson, Napheesa Collier, and Breanna Stewart finished ahead of her, all of whom are on this list, and none of whom Clark would argue against being ranked higher than her. But Jackie Young has never received MVP votes. Sabrina Ionescu has never won MVP. Alyssa Gray has never been in the conversation. And yet all three are ranked above Clark on a list that is ostensibly measuring who the best players in the league are right now. Viewership impact. This category does not appear on a traditional box score, but it is real and it is measurable, and it matters enormously when evaluating a player's overall value to the league. Clark drove 87% of the most watched games in WNBA history in 2024. When she was unavailable in 2025, ratings fell off a cliff. No other player on this list, no other player in the league's entire history has produced numbers like that. If viewership impact were a stat category, the way points and assists are, Clark would lead this list by a margin that would not even be a discussion. Current trajectory and health. Clark is fully healthy, entering 2026. She is playing with the best supporting roster of her career. She is the betting favorite for MVP. Every indicator of what she is likely to do this season points upward. Several players ranked above her are older, coming off injury concerns of their own, or playing on teams with significant roster uncertainty. Put all of that together cleanly and honestly, and the answer is not 10th. The argument for third behind Wilson and Collier is completely reasonable and easy to defend. The argument for second, behind only A'ja Wilson, is stronger than ESPN's list would have you believe. And for those willing to weigh viewership impact and economic value alongside traditional stats, the argument for first overall is not as far-fetched as the mainstream conversation currently allows. Third is the floor, second is defensible, and first is a legitimate conversation. ESPN ranked her 10th. The data says something very different. And in 10 days, when the 2026 season begins, the hardwood is going to start having its say. End quote. Here is where everything lands. Caitlin Clark is the MVP betting favorite for 2026. She made the All-WNBA first team. She led the league in assists. She finished fourth in MVP voting while injured. She drove 87% of the most watched games in WNBA history. She won tournament MVP at FIBA. She is fully healthy. She has her best roster, and ESPN ranked her 10th. This is not a subjective disagreement between reasonable analysts. This is a 3-year documented pattern of placing one specific player below where every meaningful metric says she belongs, while the same network simultaneously profits from her existence and relies on her viewership numbers to justify their own media rights investment. What makes this moment different from the previous ranking controversies is the sheer weight of the evidence. Every cycle, the case for Clark gets stronger. Every cycle, the gap between what the numbers say and what ESPN publishes gets wider. And every cycle, the mainstream conversation around this pattern gets a little louder and a little harder to ignore. The 2026 season begins in 10 days, and here is the thought worth sitting with long after this video ends. The greatest threat to ESPN's WNBA investment is not a rival network or a competing league or a bad season. It is the editorial decisions being made inside their own building that quietly signal to casual fans that the player driving their entire product is barely worth noticing. The irony of that situation is almost too large to fully absorb. Clark will answer on the court. She always does. The question is whether the people ranking her will ever let the numbers do the talking.